gosh.
And we are live. Thank you so much for joining us on the one thing. And
we're get a little bit behind the scenes there.
Just a little bit. All good.
And we're running 10 minutes late. So thank you everyone that has still joined us and been very patient. And I can hear an echo. Why can I hear an echo?
Well, it's a long story, but the speakers are on in the other room there because we had to do a little bit of a fiddling.
So do we need to turn the speakers off?
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, no fire. No hurry.
Okay, this is crazy town in here.
It really is. Let's blame the lady in red. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Let's hop into the show.
Yeah.
Well, while that's all going on, right, would you like to do the introduction?
Do you need, yeah, I most certainly will, but do you need to download that video or anything?
I'm on it. Trust me, I'm making these things work. How about you do the talkie, I'll do the quickie.
All right, so I'm going to do the talkie. All right.
It's like a married couple or something. Seriously.
I'm not doing that again.
Arguing over there.
And I'd like to say welcome to our beautiful co-host Leanne Jones, who has been busy preparing the other room for an event. Would you like to tell everyone what you've been up to?
Sure. So tonight we are hosting an event for 𝐶EA Redox. So if you want to come through, you're more than welcome to 7 p.m. here at Edge Radio Australia, where you may learn a thing or two about cellular health.
Yeah, very, very good. And you are just such a superstar, being a Bowen therapist and also with your redox. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Lisa.
And you still find time to be on our fabulous show.
Well, you know, it takes one to know one. Look at this.
And we've been running for, what, 1 year and 3 months now?
I know, how crazy is that?
I know, it's crazy.
That long.
I know, it feels like it's that short, but
It's
it
only
also
felt
feels
like a decade.
Oh, shut up.
And Aaron Malloy, who on our very first show, Leanne and I said, yeah, you're not allowed to talk. It's Leanne's of my show.
That's right. I was supposed to be in the background. It was a radio show. I was hiding there. And what do you guys do?
Drag you in.
Start talking to me. Thanks for that.
Yeah, drag him in. What can we say? The chemistry works.
It does.
So we're joined today by a very special guest, Terri Messenger. And some of you might already be familiar with Terri because she has her own show. So I'm going to let her or encourage her to talk a little bit about that in a moment. But she's especially important to me because she's actually been in my life for over 40 years. And yes, I know we do not get...
That's a long time.
I know, it's a very long time.
Did you know each other when you were babies?
Yes,
yeah,
thank you, Leanne.
Sure.
Thank you, Leanne. For many decades and many different chapters. You know how in life some people just kind of keep weaving in and out of your life, and Terri's been one of those. So I'm really, really pleased today that she has agreed to come on and talk about what is essentially something very, very sad with her husband having recently been diagnosed with vascular dementia. And I think it's very, very brave of you to come on and speak about it, Terri, because I know that it's a very difficult thing to go through. I feel very fortunate, but I've never had to experience this myself with anyone close to me, but having worked in a dementia wing in aged care, I've been an observer, and I can see that it's a situation where it looks to me like people go through a grieving process twice. So it'll be twice, because you basically lose that person twice.
Oh, I thought it was more times actually. I thought it was up to, it could be any amount of times.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to open that up. So if anybody's watching that has any questions as we're going through, or they would like to speak about an experience they've had, our beautiful pressy button person over here is going to help us do that. But in the first instance, Terri, I want to give you a proper introduction. So Terri is a renowned hypnotherapist, master NLP practitioner. And for those who don't know what NLP stands for, I'm sure Terri will explain that in a moment. And she's a trainer dedicated to unlocking human potential. She has a profound spiritual gift, and she helps high-level leaders and individuals break through deep-seated blocks, turning pain into power and purpose. She's been recognised as a top 50 transformational leader, and she's transformed thousands of lives through her powerful coaching and healing work. And today she's here, as we've mentioned, to help us open Pandora's box, on dementia. And I think it's really, really special that you're here on another level as well, Terri, being the fact that you do unlock human potential. So I'm guessing that this has taken you to a whole new level.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that, that introduction, Lisa. I'm really, really humbled. And, yeah, taken me to another level. I think sometimes you've got to go down before you go up. And that's just how it is. And for anybody out there who has suffered with any loved one that's had dementia, Alzheimer's, or any kind of form of this, what you're going to discover is that there's actually more than 2 goodbyes. I think I've already had around about 4 or 5.
Wow.
So every time I visit my husband, he's now in a permanent care facility, which if you think this time last year, you can't imagine that that would have even been a thing, because he was, what day is it today? It's Thursday today. He used to operate Monday, Wednesday and Friday.
Okay.
So even when I was there on Monday, I said to him, oh, it's 2:00, Ian. It's time for you to go and work out on your patients. Because,
okay, so what do you mean by operate? Because a lot of people don't know anything about Dr. Ian Messenger.
Okay, so operate, he is a chiropractor with incredible philosophy. So his philosophy comes from over 35 years, and he did start in mature age. So he was a mature age when he started, and he did his training at the Phillip Institute. So in Ian's true words, he says, we are the doctors of chiropractic with real philosophy. And, you know, so he was very, very well known and renowned for what he did. In fact, he was telling me a year leading up to his exit, and, you know, they say it's better to burn out than fade away. Oh, my gosh.
So true. So true.
Well, that was putting things into, I mean, you know what Ian's like, Lisa. Ian never does do anything in half measures. So he went out with a bang. But before he did exit his chiropractic, a lot of his patients kept saying, are you training anyone? Are you training anyone? Right. And in the last 3 months, fortunately, someone who purchased his business off him, a young man, shadowed him. So started to come in after his appointments and sit with Ian. And I have been told by a number of his patients that he's doing a really good job. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Do you have chiropractic treatment, Leanne?
No, I had it once.
Okay.
And but it wasn't by a chiropractor, it was by an osteopath. I mean, and he actually ruptured my vertebrae.
Okay, so not a good experience.
By a osteopath.
He cracked me
wrong.
So not a good experience. See, for me, Terri and I caught up just when you had first met Ian, and I think that was about 20 years ago. Am I correct in saying that?
Yep, that'd be about right.
And we were living up in Quinns at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether you remember or not, but I was having a lot of difficulty with my back, and it was extremely stiff. And I was like, no, I don't want to go and see a chiropractor. I had like this feeling that I just didn't want to go and see a chiropractor. So I did go and see Ian. I put a lot of faith in him, and I drove to Maddington, and it was a long way to drive, and I was absolutely just transformed.
Gobsmacked.
Yeah, absolutely gobsmacked at what he could do. And having seen another chiropractor afterward that was close, who's also very good, I can see why people drove hours to see Ian.
Oh, yeah. I mean, generations would come in, like they'd get a Friday and we'd have grandma, you know, daughter's daughter, and it would go down the line, and they'd be all sitting there. They'd all travel from Coogee,
right? And
they'd make a day of it. It'd like be a, you know, pack a picnic basket, come in and you know, see the great late. They used to call him the late Dr. Ian Messenger,
and he'd kind of mumble and giggle a lot.
Still alive.
And I still don't know what he was saying a lot of the time.
Lisa, I'm really glad you mentioned that.
Yeah,
because I mean, firstly, I want to do a disclaimer here, and that is that I am not an expert on dementia.
Okay.
But ask me in another year, you might find me a bit up there.
You'll write a doctorate in a year's time. You might.
I mean, especially with the kind of personality that I am, being so obsessive on research. So I am researching dementia and vascular dementia, and there are so many different types. But anything that I'm about to share on this show is only Ian's experience.
Then may I ask a question on this? Because what is we all know dementia. Okay,
Mhm.
well, we think we know dementia.
Mm.
What is vascular dementia? What's the difference?
So vascular is more to do with the brain and the
Okay.
blood flow to the brain.
Right.
So what happens
like
is
mini strokes?
Yes,
Oh,
exactly. But
okay.
Ian hasn't actually had a stroke.
Okay.
So there's been no, sign of a stroke. But what he has had is heart failure. So,
Really?
yes,
Okay.
so that was a little bit of a sign. But I'm just going to go back to what I'm glad you mentioned about mumbling. Now, it is Ian's natural lingo, and his excuse for mumbling was, well, I come from the outback, so I've got to keep my mouth shut so the flies don't get in. And that was,
I'm a cool cat.
you know,
Come on.
and so he mumbled. But
Right.
I could actually always understand him, despite the fact that a lot of people couldn't.
Mm.
And
I used to just nod a lot.
yeah,
Smile.
yes. A lot of people have confessed that to me lately. And that was what threw me. Because he mumbled, I didn't recognize that his language was changing. And I remember standing in the kitchen with him one day and going, oh my gosh, not only do you mumble, I can't even understand what you're trying to say anymore. But I saw it as a complete breakdown of communication. So what happens is, what are the biggest things when a relationship breaks down? It's usually communication.
So true.
And, we were the silent, non-communicative couple because
really?
we lived in this big house. I mean, you saw it, Lisa. And, he was changing, and he was slowly, when I think about it, like if you could go back and zoom out and actually realize what was going on, he was fading away.
Right.
He was literally fading away. But all as I thought was that he was losing his motivation, he was losing interest. And
So you thought it was something he had control of.
I did.
And because
Yes.
you two are so much into personal development, that was challenging for you. It never occurred to you it was a dementia issue.
It never, ever, not in a million years. I believe, now I'm just going to put this out there, but I believe if we had known and we had seen it coming, we could have maybe jumped onto it and perhaps halted it because it's really escalated.
Okay.
So it is escalated to a level that has shocked not just the community, but doctors. Doctors have said this is the fastest and most rapid decline I've seen.
It's
Was there
unbelievable.
dementia in the family? Sorry
No,
to ask. No.
It's a really good question because that's the first thing everybody asks. Is it like a inherited thing? I believe with Ian, his was totally from diabetes. In fact, again, remember, I'm not medical and anything I'm saying here is just experience from our own experience.
Sure.
But they're calling it, I've heard, diabetes 3. So
wow.
there's, diabetes
I've heard
1.
this term before.
yeah,
Okay.
same.
Yeah.
Right.
So diabetes 3 means that, if the man didn't have diabetes, if he had have been more, let's just say, vigilant with his sugar levels,
Sure.
and if we had have jumped on to his heart condition, because what had happened was about 18 months ago, he blew up like a blowfish. Now, why am I saying this? Because I'm saying this because if anyone out there sees a loved one, this happening to a loved one, or if it happens to you, do not ignore it because we did. We ignored it for a long time until I couldn't ignore it anymore. And he literally looked like a goldfish. He was really, his ankles had blown up, his face had blown up. So by the time I'd got him to the emergency, he was almost in heart failure. Now, what does that mean? So heart failure is where the heart rate is usually around 85, 90. It might be, something around that number. He was like 35.
Wow.
So his heart rate was so slow, he was nearly dead.
Yeah.
Literally.
So for anybody out there listening thinking, well, Terri's just said that they ignored it, why did you ignore it? Was it because life just gets busy?
Yeah. I feel like it's the frog in the water syndrome, where if you put a frog into water and you slowly turn it up, it kind of becomes immune until it reaches boiling point, And by the time it reaches boiling point, it's too late for them to jump out.
Yeah.
Where the frog that is going to jump into hot water will jump straight back out because it'll feel it. And so it snuck up, like I said. So here we are living in this beautiful, you saw the 2-story fairy tale house.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was fading away, sitting in a corner, doing his own thing. And I was kind of kidding myself, getting on with my coaching business, but I was really throwing myself into my coaching business.
He also had an instance where he had a error of judgment online as well, didn't he? So was that another clue?
That is. That they say that's actually, if you look at, like I was listening to like someone who was more of an expert on the topic, and she was saying that there's 7 stages of dementia. And, you know, the dementia, you can get Lewy body. So there's Lewy body, you can get vascular dementia. Okay. And, of course, then there's Alzheimer's, and they're sort of all related. And there's the one Bruce Willis has got, you know, the front lobal one. So, you know, there's all those different ones. When he was scammed, and I'm just going to say what I believe you were referring to, they say that is something that definitely happens. And by the time that happens, when they become what they call a vulnerable brain.
Right.
So you don't realise it. And Ian's a country boy. So he trusts everyone, you know. I mean, the nurses at the care facility, one nurse comes up and goes, you know, and that's what she does. And he's looking at her like, what are you talking about? But he does it all the time. You know, that's Ian's little, that was the first thing he did when he met me, you know. He gave me that wink and I thought, oh, you know, Paul Hogan, kind of an Aussie kind of a bloke.
Right, gents, jot that down. Great technique.
Whilst we're talking about his personality, do you think now would be a good time to play the video, and maybe Terri can just explain to us how that came about?
We can do that. Okay. No
do you want to tell us the background of the video?
Yeah, so the background of the video. So Ian is actually very, very ill in this video. He is in hospital. He's not quite diagnosed, but at this point he is going to transition, between the hospital and the social workers and all the people that I'm dealing with as I'm advocating for him. We're looking at a transition for him to go somewhere. So they're literally reading me the right act and saying, you can't take him home. And so I had a lot of people against me.
What a conversation.
And so Lisa comes along, and I do have to say, Lisa, you just shocked me, because I was totally blown away by the fact that, number one, you went in for something you knew that was very near and dear to him. So Ian used to work up in Port Hedland. So he did a lot of satellite, and he'd go around and he'd do chiropractic satellite. And he joined a community, a haka community, a Maori community. Right. And he loves culture. So he's really, really big on culture. And in the end, he was able to do the haka better than some of those Māoris themselves. And Lisa knew this. In fact, we had a specific time when I won a trip to the Bahamas. Remember that?
I do.
Through our company. And I was the last person to know that I won. And next thing you know, one of my people comes in and goes, oh, you dirty old stop out. You didn't even tell us you entered in the competition. I'm like, what competition? You're going to the Bahamas. Don't tell us you didn't know that. I went, I have no clue. Anyway, off we go. And we set sail, and there we are on this ship, this cruise ship, very posh. And we're with all the Americans, all the CEOs, all the top people in the company. And we all come into this very, palatial kind of room where it's all tiered. Ian's a very bold man. Now, you know that
He's
about
very
him.
brazen. No boundaries.
None whatsoever.
No boundaries.
Like someone else we know, is it?
Yeah, yeah. Hence why, I had to get swooped off my feet, because, my gosh, if you're that bold. Anyway, he starts marching down the tier of the theatre and going up to the stage. he whispers to the CEO of the company, and I can see him like making his usual point. And I don't think the CEO knew, because he's American, what are these Aussies like, and especially a real Aussie. I don't think he actually knew what he was going to get himself in for. And then Ian gets onto the stage. Now, when you do the haka in the real traditional way, you make contact with the audience first, so they don't know what's coming. Right. And there's this deafening silence, and then it's like rah, and he
Sorry,
starts,
Terri, how was it?
and I tell you, I hated it. I hated the haka with a passion. And he did the haka on the stage, and I nearly walked out. I nearly jumped overboard. Yes, he did get addressed. He did get told that the next time, if he ever does anything like that again, security will march him off stage.
Security.
Exactly. But anyway, so that's just to give you a bit of a background.
So what I love about this video is one of the things that I learned when I was working in that field was that inhibitions go, and in Ian's case, they were always gone anyway.
I didn't know that one.
They do. They just go. But you get to connect with the person on a different level. Like and once again, I'm no expert. This is just my experience, like on a very, very spiritual level.
Yeah.
So what I did when we were having, he was eating the meal that you'd bought for him, and then I just came to me to put the haka on. So I did that on the YouTube, and then he stood up afterwards.
The rugby.
Yeah. And he did this. So let's not keep people waiting.
Was
let's have a look.
Let's go. How about that?
You can only imagine what he's like when he's in full force. That's him.
You married him. No,
I mean, that's him when he is obviously incoherent, uncoordinated, unable to stand on his own, and that's what you get. So that's his personality. So he is very bold. He is very brazen. And you know what, Lisa, about this, inhibition thing, what I do notice is, well, he didn't have much, as you said, right? So there wasn't much of a filter. He said what was on his mind. He never suffered fools lightly. I'm talking, see what I'm doing right here now? I'm talking like he's dead. So no, Ian is not. He's very much alive. But the reason that this is quite a typical thing, that loved ones will start talking about them like they're in the past.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And it's because that's the goodbye.
Okay.
So I've already said goodbye to that part of Ian.
Yeah.
Right? And that's an unconscious thing. I didn't even know I was doing it. I had to pick myself up right there. But the man he was yesterday, I know that every time I turn up at the care facility, I'll walk in and I'll ask myself, what man am I going to have today?
That's a hard one, isn't it? It's a hard one.
Yeah.
We had a friend of the family who I called my uncle and auntie, and she ended up with dementia in her 50s. And he cared for her for 16 years.
Wow.
Till she passed. And he had no life.
So hard. I mean, I can't even imagine. I've had someone in my life with Huntington's, and you get a different person a lot.
Yes.
But I haven't been through that progression, and I can't imagine, like, that hurt, right? So I can't imagine, like, I have so much respect for you. The fact that I've got a little tear in my eyes. Because every day you go.
Yeah.
Right. And we keep track.
And that's unheard of.
It's You're pretty amazing. I think that, you go and you're like, it's a bit of 51st dates about it, I guess. You go and reintroduce yourself to Ian every day to a big degree.
Does he remember you?
It's a way to keep it fresh.
Yeah, well, he would have so many jokes around this, actually.
Oh, really?
Aaron? I mean, he would. He'd say, different person every day. That smorgasbord, He would see the light in that.
I reckon you're right.
Does he remember me? Very, very, very good question. So Generally, yes. So today, absolutely. Most days, yes. But if he has a sniff of an infection, if he has a wrong medication, if there is a slight decline like a fall, so he's been having quite a lot of falls, which is part of it, then he doesn't know who I am, and I'll ask him, am I your wife? And he'll say, I don't know, but I hope so. So
that's good for the soul.
He's still funny, you know.
That's right. Right.
I mean,
Ego is not a dirty word.
Yeah.
Right, okay. All right.
Actually, while we're on the subject of how, my first experience with Ian, you actually got married on, was it his birthday?
It was.
Yeah. So, and
So
my
you wouldn't
husband
forget.
my husband at the time and I were
Yeah.
really chuffed because we got to sit on your table at the reception.
Use a chair next time.
But your wedding was unique, Terri, because I've never ever experienced somebody actually singing to their bride, walking down the aisle, particularly somebody that, how can I say it nicely, can't sing.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Sounds like a scene from The Wedding Singer.
Share about that.
Okay, I was not expecting this. So when I walked in, instead of all eyes being on the bride, all eyes were on Ian. And he had the mic, and if I may just illustrate here,
You may.
and he was going like this with the mic, and
No, don't go.
We're not going there. No, don't go
I will not sing. I will not sing, I promise. But I was totally blown away. And do you know something? I think that there was a portion of people that may have done a few little whispers and a few little sneers and a few little giggles and things like that. And even I, for one, may have gone, oh, did he have to do that? That was so, I was like my kids. That was just so embarrassing.
So cringe. Yeah.
But you know what? That is one
Pure
of
love.
the most endearing moments, and I wish to God I could find it on video.
Right.
So it's interesting that, you know, when something happens to your loved one,
Yeah.
and all the things, like the things that were driving me nuts about him in the end, are the things that I find the most endearing today.
I know. What
Isn't it
is
strange?
that? I used to, because my dad passed in 2017, and it used to drive me nuts when he drank his cup of coffee, he'd slurp it. But what I do sometimes now when I'm on my own, like I find myself slurping my coffee, but I do it kind of in memory of my dad.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
It's the weirdest thing. We're
Yes.
strange, aren't we?
Oh, we are weird, but that's okay.
I loved your dad. But, you know,
Your dad
Ian,
loved- my
Ian,
dad loved
Ian
you.
used to have a straw, and everyone used to, can't take him anywhere. And he'd sit there and say, get me a straw. So he'd get the straw and he would actually suck all the juice out of his 𝐼𝐴. And that would be how, and everybody at the table would cringe. Do you know what, Lisa? I take him a straw now. I go, come on.
Yeah.
The man deserves it. He's worked hard for that. Come on.
I even told him to grab the bowl the other day and, you know, just
I'm wondering.
That's what I do with Lax.
I do too. I love it.
yeah.
So fun.
You know, I'm wondering,
Get a
to a
moustache.
straw though,
Like
if it's a
Luxembourg.
hot one, like
Yeah.
I have it with a chili in it,
Yeah.
obviously, and wouldn't that just like
Chili
burn the
good
whole?
Oh, oh, yes.
Oh yeah, that's going to
absolutely.
go in a big
Do you
time.
remember what he sung? Do you remember the
Oh,
song?
yeah, Ave Maria.
All right. I thought it
Oh,
was,
that's when that's sung badly. That could be really bad.
I honestly did. I know that. Okay. I
Because
thought
that's all right. That can go high. No.
I honestly thought it must be Lady in Red, but there you go. There you go.
I was actually wearing cream that day, but yes. it
You'd hope
was-
so.
Yeah,
You'd hope so.
it's
Hey,
very
can I just
interesting.
stop
Yes.
everyone for just a
Yeah,
moment? Let's
go for
sneak
it.
in a quick little message.
Ever felt lost online finding the right businesses?
Absolutely, like a needle in a haystack.
Introducing the Worldwide Awake Business Directory.
Tell me more.
It's your hub for businesses sharing your values. Discover eco-friendly products, socially responsible services, and more.
Count me in. I'll check it out straight away.
Find businesses aligned with your values on the Worldwide Awake Business Directory. Start making a difference with every purchase.
Oh, I hope you enjoyed the beer break as much as we did.
Terry's is near her feet. Look, Terry,
There we
you
go.
can see yours.
It's sort of the house brick
It was
around
given
here.
to me. What can I say?
That's right.
It was handed to me.
Oh dear. As I said before, I'm like so impressed. I really am. I think that like you find out the quality of a person when they're in adversity, obviously, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But when you're looking after somebody who means something to you, a lot to you, obviously, everything to you. Just the fact that you show up, it's incredibly important. And I've kind of said it to you before, but I want you to know that because
Thank you.
yeah, it's such an important thing. And so many people run.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree.
Yeah.
Oh, we have really come to know that.
Yeah.
Even very close family members run.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's
so-
about them. It's not
Yeah.
about
No,
you.
that's right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Look,
Yeah.
the staff at the care facility, I get along with them all famously.
Right.
And besides the fact that I'm advocating for him at least 3 times a
Yeah,
week,
I wanted to talk to
telling
you
them
about that.
what time he gets up,
Yeah.
when to shave him. I'm just joking. But I do really advocate for him. For
You also
everything.
take in sweets, but okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
but you know what? They absolutely love it.
Yep.
And they have a respect. So
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, here comes that woman again. She's going to drive us nuts.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they absolutely love it when I go in there.
Because it is soul destroying working in a place like that
Yeah.
and seeing somebody not getting any visitors.
Oh,
And that's what I'd like to say to anybody that's listening is you might not think it matters, but it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It does because they're on a different level. Even if
Yeah.
they don't remember
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
next time, they know on a level.
Well, Ian's best friend is asking me when I'm coming in next now. So,
Yes.
you know, I mean, you do. And I
Is that
have,
Packer?
I have actually, yes, I
Yeah.
have made it my business to know all the residents' names.
Yeah.
And I will talk to them and speak to them. But yeah, look, I would say if I was going to say something about vascular dementia,
Mhm.
it would be that apparently in stage 1,
Yep.
no one knows, not even yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
So stage 1 could have happened. We're guessing that he hit stage 1 around about 2.5 years ago.
All right.
So it
Was
wasn't
there a
as
catalyst
sudden.
that would have triggered that, or like stress at work? Was he under a lot of pressure? Any of that sort of stuff?
I remember him saying to me that he felt very nervous about walking on the roof. He said, I don't think I'll do that again, but I didn't take any notice of it,
Mm.
And
Because he was getting older. That's what you
Yeah, I
probably would have
didn't.
thought.
And of course, the mumbling part, which we were
Yeah.
talking about before. So the extra mumbling, and the doctor says to me, he rings me up and he says, what was he doing before that? And what was it? Because he knows that I've got a lot of facts that I've looked up, researched, and I've really integrated a lot of things.
Okay.
And he goes, but was he missing words? I know he mumbled. You said that he mumbled a lot, but were there words that he was missing? And I went, well, actually, come to think of it, it was. And he would make this action with his hands. And so the words were, when I think about it, were not there. But as I was talking about with the scam, he got scammed. They reckon that at the point of, if a person is in the vulnerable brain stage, that actually doesn't happen till about stage 2 or 3.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long ago was he scammed?
I can tell you right now, the 1st of February 2024,
Really?
because it was
okay.
my mother's birthday. And I had a podcast, and I actually said,
It was inconvenient, wasn't it?
it was
Terry?
so inconvenient.
How rude.
Did you have to
Yeah.
get scammed today?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
and look, to tell you the truth, that was a day that, Ian and I had this silent, disappearance of our marriage. So, when 2 people suddenly, go into that stage of their marriage where things are coming to an end, it's usually communication.
Yeah.
And so for us, and probably very much like the first marriage, we never fought. So there was the only times I could ever remember us fighting was when we moved house, and that's because he has so much stuff. So he's actually a hoarder, right? So he's got he's more well equipped than most small factories, in his words. And so
Because you might need it for something.
it was a silent
You
but deadly
never know.
thing. Yeah, it was, and it's dangerous.
He was very irritated that day that I jumped in the car.
So irritation. I thought you can think to yourself, is this person sabotaging me? And that's what and this is not true. I do have to say this is absolutely not true. He was not deliberately sabotaging, but I felt like that was what was going on. I won't go into all the different things, but you did witness one moment, and another one of my friends went, Terri, you better not bring him next time, So there were those moments where other people were noticing, and that would have been about a year and a half prior. And so stage 1, nobody knows, not even yourself. Stage 2, and remember, this is only my experience and what I have been listening to through people that work closely in hospices and things like this. Stage 3 is vulnerable brain. If I had a shotgun held at my head, I would possibly say that he's in about stage 4 or 5 at the moment.
Okay.
How many stages are there?
They say 7.
And so is there a prognosis on his length of life that he has remaining?
I have been actually spoken to by the doctor, and he did make a deliberate effort to sit me down and say, look, this is the fastest decline I have ever seen. Right. So he wanted to embrace me for the worst. So the things that, yes, there has been. But, I'm going to honour Ian in as much as his late wife, when she passed, they did not want any outcomes. So when they went to the doctor, they said no outcomes.
Yes.
And
I can
Because doctors often don't get it right anyway.
Oh, no, they don't. My dad was told he had 3 months to live. That never happened.
Exactly. So she had cancer. And it was very quick as well. And she was quite young. So he told the doctor in no uncertain terms, no outcomes.
Yep.
And then one day they went there, and it might have just slipped the doctor's mind, and he said, you have 6 months.
Yeah.
And apparently she died to the day, the month, the second.
So wrong.
And, so it's like the finger pointing.
Yeah, no, I get that. Terri, there's a question's come up. And thank you, Lisa Lee. It's through.
Yeah, that's Lisa from the People's Health Alliance. Thank you for
Lisa.
always
Lisa
watching.
L.
Lisa. So lovely to have you
Absolutely
on.
fantastic. So Lisa L. has put in there, if it's caught early enough, is there a possibility of reversing it?
Well, Lisa, thank you for your question. And, this is actually a question that ravages me. And it's a question that I've had to almost get to the point where I've had to process and say, Terri, for crying down the sink, girl, you are not God. There's nothing you could have done, because, yes, I felt very much that if we had have caught it in earlier stages, I don't know, apparently there's no such thing as reversal. That's what I've heard. So you cannot reverse anything, but through Christ all things are possible. So who knows? There have been miracles that have happened, but medically I have heard that it is non-reversible.
Right.
But do you know what I always say to people? Like, if you follow me on TikTok, I tend to do the stories over there because it seems to be such an appropriate forum, and my mission is to put him in remission.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool if you can do that. One thing was suggested to me about not this particular thing, but things that are degenerative to the brain is fish oil. Now, I'm not saying that you can start doing that now, but something that is quite positive apparently is to have a lot of fish oil earlier in life and throughout your life, really maintain it. There's studies saying that this is probably something that can stay at
Richard's going to be screwed because he hates fish.
He may not mind it because it comes in a capsule.
No. Can have it in a capsule.
Yeah.
It depends on where it's sourced from.
You burp it.
Right.
Yeah. No, he won't do it.
Okay.
He won't do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually do believe that.
Sure.
And interestingly, we have got a very broad-minded doctor, and he's a general practitioner, but he does have a special interest in dementia.
Okay.
And, you know, he's really great. And I said to him, look, there's a few things that I would like to introduce, and I wanted to run it by him first. The first thing is one thing that Lisa and I, in fact, I haven't yet got back to somebody on TikTok asked me this question. I saw it flash up. I haven't got to answer it yet, but they asked me the question, where do you get the moringa from? Now, remember, I don't know if there's any cure. I don't know about anything like that. I'm very interested in finding out about what you've got as well, which we'll talk about that later. But
Between Leanne and I, we've got the power formula.
Yeah. I have been giving Ian moringa, and the doctor's very open to that. So I mix him up some moringa. The other one that's kind of in line with what you're saying, Aaron, is, and don't tell me to actually pronounce this in its fullest term.
Oh, come on, Terri.
But it's NAD. Go look it up.
Oh, yeah, NAD.
I'll
Yes,
give
I
you
know all
$100
about
if
NAD,
you
yeah.
can say. But yeah, so NAD is what I have got. But because I've been advocating very closely with his doctor, we've been on it in regards, like he had a very bad reaction, for example, and see with a person with
Is
dementia,
it a bad reaction or is it a healing response?
that
Because
can
often,
be yeah,
because often with these things, yes, you get a healing response, or what they call a detox or a healing crisis, you know, if you want to go down the bad terms, but it's actually the body's healing response sometimes when these things come up.
Yes.
So,
well, I would be,
interesting.
that is a very interesting point, because sometimes you do have to get worse before you get
even
better.
with Bowen, they, you know, you 2 days later you can feel worse than when you came in.
Yeah.
But that's the body. The body's in a doctor taking control. Yeah.
What I'd love to do for anybody watching, because I think it's so important, Terri, and you've done such a great job advocating for Ian. I'd love for you to share some more on that, because I don't think families and close ones understand the power that they have in these places.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So maybe just share with people how you're doing that.
Yeah.
Because
there's
people
no
feel
point,
empowered.
Yeah, there's no point hiding anything here. The health system is in an absolute crisis.
No doubt about it.
It is.
So is the aged care
it
system.
is very much in a massive crisis. They can't get enough help, workers, etc., etc. So if you do have a loved one, specifically if they're older, unless it's a heart condition, they could be sitting in an emergency for a long time. Now, some people may have that kind of attitude, let's leave it to the medics, they know best, and everything else. However, sometimes, especially when in the health system crisis that we're in, unless you speak up. So, for example,
you'll be pushed to the back of the line.
Squeaky wheel.
So getting back to, like, even with Lisa's question, can it be reversed? Well, I would love, Lisa, I would love nothing more to rewind the clock, because if I could rewind the clock, number one, when our communication was dissolving into thin air and things were going pear-shaped, I probably would just change that whole paradigm. And I would change that whole paradigm to see that through. Another thing that happened is that Ian decided to take it upon himself to peel his toenail off because he had an ingrown toenail.
Yeah, but that's a bloke thing.
Oh my
Get
God.
out the
That's
pliers.
terrible.
Come on.
Go see a podiatrist.
Have a
Is that the type of man you're talking about?
Yeah, spoonful of concrete. Get on with it.
Oh my Lord.
But, you know, this again, one night I'm sitting there watching TV, I look across and I say to him, your toe's blue. Okay, half an hour later, we're down in the emergency department, and even though they gave him a bed, 48 hours,
Oh, my
3-day growth, all the rest of it, his toe's black now.
Oh.
Now, he's still lucid, okay?
Is that diabetes?
Yes.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
he calls me up at 11 o'clock at night and he said, remember, he's lucid. He's 5 years in practice of chiropractic. He said, my toe is going black.
Okay.
I'm not too concerned about my toe. It's my foot.
Okay.
And I rang up the hospital and I insisted something be done straight away. And I jumped on it because, and I finally got a doctor on the phone and I asked them this question. I said, if you were me and if this was your mother or this was your, your brother or this was someone you loved, what would you be doing? And he said, exactly what you're doing. Exactly.
Okay.
And he said,
you've got to be an advocate.
You do.
You're right. The system is broken. We can go on and on about that, but the reality is you've got to be there. You've got to have someone who lets you stand up and speak for you. It's incredibly important.
Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly bring a mention. There we go to this one. I saw a podcast with a guy who was getting dementia and he was helped by, now what is that?
Methylene
Blue.
blue.
That's from
Methylene
Shelley.
Ooh.
I've never heard that one. That's
Okay, I'll
interesting.
have
There
to
we go.
write
I
that
have heard of
down.
it.
So,
You heard that?
Shelley, if you want to message Leanne
Yeah.
and let her know so she can pass it on to Terri
Absolutely.
what it is.
Okay, no, that's great.
That's really good. In fact, I cannot believe the amount of people, like my inbox is full. Half the time I'm not replying to people's messages or I'm not even getting them because my inbox is so full.
Yes,
and it's flooded with Ian's patients calling
Wow.
me, messaging me, giving me love, giving me hugs
Oh,
to
well,
give
that's
to him.
wonderful.
And, so I do acknowledge it. And you know what? I try to read everything out to Ian as well. And so many of you have been, dropping, ideas, and even his own patients have been actually saying, how about, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And look, I'm happy. If there is something that we don't know about, I'm open to it. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Let's have a very quick beer break.
Is pain holding you back? Bowen Therapy with Panacea Healing can change that for you. It's never too late to recharge your health, career, or purpose. You have the power within yourself to change what no longer serves you, taking your life and health to another level. panaceahealing.com.au. You can do anything.
And there we go. Nothing happened, of course.
Much.
No.
I just thought it might be nice for people watching to give Terri the opportunity to actually talk about what she does, what NLP stands for, and maybe let people know about when you're on air on Edge Radio because you have your own show.
Okay. Well, firstly, NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and it is the way that the brain processes information through words and, the stories that we tell ourselves and the way that we're actually wired. And one of the things that I guess really, if I'm going to say put me on the map as a NLP trainer and practitioner, it was the fast phobia cure. And one of my own clients who became a very strong advocate of NLP came up to me one day and she said, Terri, is it possible that if you can change a trauma at such a deep level on a phobia that someone's got, that you can use it for anything? And I thought, what a good point. And I have been doing that. Now, today, I did that with Ian. So how can I bring that into, what I do? I think, number one, you've got to wait for the time to be right.
That's
because, I've got to catch his attention. I've got to make sure I am speaking to the subconscious. Look, guys, if you've got a loved one who does have dementia, just because they may not make sense, and Ian is what you call jumping in and out of different dimensions. So he looks very bright. He's got that air of command about him still. So people really see him and respect him a lot. However, when he starts talking, he speaks very brilliantly, but it's confabricated.
How do you mean?
So I won't say fabricated, but it's kind of like where it's nonsensical.
Okay.
So the words are there and what he's saying could be quite profound.
Right.
But at the moment, he's around 28 years old. So, depending on
Lucky him.
I know, right?
I'll take that.
So, he told me today that I was too old for him.
Oh, how I say.
And And just
then-
put it in context, he's
Yeah.
actually 18 years older than you.
He's 18 years older, but
Yeah.
it turned out that what he meant, because they do actually catch on with a topic. And I'm not saying everyone, because some of them, and I see a lot of the residents where he is, some of them are just simply memory and there's nothing more. With Ian, it's a lot more complex.
And he
Sure,
actually
sure.
introduced you to NLP, didn't he?
did.
So this
He
is
absolutely did.
beautiful karma.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He wanted to clear me up because he knew I had a lot of background. So he went, I really want to get together with this woman, but how do we get rid of her baggage so we can, start afresh? Smart man.
Very much so.
I utilised NLP with him today. So the confabrication happens where he'll say things that are nonsensical, so it won't make sense. But because he's, say, 28, 29 years of age, like today he
Sure.
was, and that seems to be a popular age. So he's an auto electrician at the moment.
Oh, right.
Because that was his days of
Oh,
when
wow.
he
Okay.
was
Yep.
an auto electrician.
I need some spotlights done on the car, so,
Well, you probably,
Okay, I'll show up.
it's profound. He'd probably be able to tell you how to wire
Bring
it.
him down the car
And-
park, you'll be
yeah.
up tomorrow.
And, being a hypnotherapist, Aaron, quite often I will go in with that rewiring, and because he always likened the rewiring as an auto electrician to
I get that.
chiropractic,
Yeah.
this goes with this and this and this, and, sort of putting everything together. So it's interesting because when he looks at himself in the camera, so when I'm doing videos with him, and you'll see them on TikTok, he starts making all these kind of faces, which is not really like him, but it's because he's in shock. And he's in shock because,
Where's
that all
because he's so old.
Oh, wow.
But he sees
I had that
himself.
feeling every
Oh,
single
me
morning.
too. Look at
There you
this.
go.
But he's
I'm
not
like,
old. But can I just say this? I really want to say this. He is just the most endearing person. He is what I call a happy drunk.
Okay.
So if you were to liken it with, a person who may drink a lot, except it's dementia, because he doesn't drink, by the way, he's happy.
So
He's joyous.
you've fallen in love again.
I see the man that I did fall in love with.
That's great.
I definitely see that man, yes. I mean, it's almost endearing. I mean, I even call myself mummy sometimes. So it's kind of a little bit different, the relationship.
Of course.
And so when I am, there's this love that I cannot describe that is unconditional.
Yeah.
It's, and it's an unconditional love, whereas anybody who says to me, gee, I'm surprised you go in so often to see him, it is harder for me not to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terri,
yeah.
would you come back in another 3 months or whenever you feel like you'd like to tell us your next?
Yeah, the next chapter.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we've had so much interest
And
and I think
also
so much
let us
value.
know when your show is on.
Okay.
Edge Radio. When's
Yeah, let
that?
everyone know.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Malloy and myself are on every Wednesday.
We are.
Perth time. So sorry to my people over in the US. I know it's 3 a.m, usually New York time, but 3 p.m. Perth time, and every Wednesday.
And how do they find you?
Yeah.
Go to terrimessenger.com. And you should find me there, or on my socials, or even go to TikTok if you really want to see the stories. Because I say, for your people, I think anybody who loves Ian,
Right.
they are following me over there
Oh,
and
that's
watching.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look,
yeah.
I've only met Ian a couple of times, okay, but we had long and very detailed conversations, and he's an intellectual guy. So to see
Yes.
this happening to him is, it's bittersweet in so many ways. But I'm actually trying to look at the positives here. I mean, how cool is it to be 28 again?
Right.
To live those sorts of experiences. And
Yes.
so, sometimes we think of it from our side. Sometimes it might be cool to look at.
Can I say one
He's
more
one of
thing
the
about
Yeah,
lucky
of
it?
course you can. Absolutely.
Okay, so today I told him I was coming here. Now
Right.
he knows Edge Radio.
Good plan. Good man.
There's things that really do etch into his head, and he knows every Wednesday I'm here. And I said, I'm
Yep.
coming here today. And he always said to me before, when he was a little bit more lucid, I want to come to Edge Radio. And I said, today we're going to talk about you. Is that okay? And he said, yes. And I said, this is legacy. And I said, Ian, if we can get you up and walking,
Yep.
and we can get you talking, maybe you can come on Edge Radio.
I would absolutely love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if if there's no other sort of alternative, we'll go to him. How about that?
That is even beautiful.
There
That's
we
more beautiful. And finally, because the pitch and pizza,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I had a lady who was very interested in coming to our next one, and she goes, "How often do you run them, Terri?" And I said, "Well, they are consistent, but funny you should ask me, because the time before last, Ian pitched
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
at
He
the
did.
pitch and
That's right.
pizza,
He did.
Yeah.
and he was swarmed with inquiries.
He was because of his
There
passion.
you go. There
Yeah.
you go.
He was. I had people contacting me afterwards for his detail.
Because he had so much passion.
Oh,
Spot on. I think that
It's
was the
about
thing.
the passion,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
not
So-
about the base.
It's all
Sorry.
right. It's all right.
And on that shocker of a joke, let's end the show. Thank you so much for everyone.
Thank you
being
for
part of it.
watching.
Really
Thank you,
absolute pleasure.
everyone.
Thank you, Terri.
Thank you, Terri, for being
Thank you,
so
Terri.
incredibly honest. And this is, of course, Being the One Thing on Edge Radio Australia.